let me start with describing what is the One Belt, One Road. I think we all know there is an overland. There are 6 corridors essentially that China has planned, and one of them is CPEC. The entire belt runs from the East Asia Pacific Rim, which are the developed countries of Japan, Korea, and Eastern China, which is not connected to Pakistan, it's connected through the South China Sea. That developed arc connecting to the other developed arc, which is northern Europe, or rather most of Europe. इस सारे के बीच में is this whole region, which is Western China, which is completely underdeveloped and unpopulated, the Central Asian republics, and the Caucasian states, which again are relatively underdeveloped. Now CPEC is looking to connect this arc with CPEC, OBOR, One Belt, One Road. तो एक तो इसका ये लैंड का हिस्सा है, ऊपर से जा रहा है. The other very major component of the One Belt, One Road is the maritime Silk Route, which is passing through the East China Sea, through the Straits of Malacca, as you see here, past Gwadar, and then on to accessing Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Now, if you look at both of these routes, एक जो ऊपर से जा रहा है और एक जो नीचे से जा रहा है, CPEC is actually the trunk passageway which is connecting both of these. It is connecting a land route with a sea route. So that's where we sit in terms of, and CPEC is also the first demonstration project of the One Belt, One Road. Because this is a very big masterpiece, which China is looking to unfold in the decades going forward. And they have funds sitting in the Asian Infrastructure Bank and the Silk Road Fund. Previously, what did China do with the huge surpluses? They would invest in US Treasury bills. And for years and years and years that continued, and then they said, no, let's put up these banks that will finance infrastructure development, which Chinese companies will come and undertake. Now, ये तो इसका wider context हो गया, and that is where CPEC sits in the overall scenario, because it's important also to know what the big picture is. But let me also now turn to the question that between 2012, 13 and 14, when China was developing their One Belt, One Road, Pakistan was developing its own Vision 2025. Now this is something which is not understood or appreciated, and a lot of people think that this is some sort of a template that the Chinese have brought and they have forced on us. And that is not true, because a lot of the projects that and a lot of the vision that has gone into the China-Pakistan corridor was already contained in the Vision 2025. I know that because I was part of the task force that did the piece for the Planning Commission, the piece on the regional connectivity and economic integration with our neighbors. And the neighbors we have are to our north, yes, but we also have neighbors to our east and west, let's not forget. And Pakistan is a regionally isolated country in that sense, that we do not trade with our neighbors, but we trade with our faraway partners. Like most of our trade is Japan, Europe, and North America. So this Vision 2025 was looking at creating that regional connectivity that is needed, and Gwadar was part of that. The dry port at Haveliya that is now part of CPEC was also part of Vision 2025. Upgradation of the Karachi-Lahore main railway line, which is now happening, was part of Vision 2025. Operationalizing of the Gwadar port was part of Vision 2025. So all these initiatives were there. When the Chinese brought their template, then from the Pakistani side, we put our projects forward. We had the meeting of minds, and that is how the CPEC thing was conceived, and that is how it sits under the broader vision that I've explained. But, to the energy side of now, which is a very big component of CPEC also, but I think one thing is becoming relatively clear now, is that Pakistan is going to be energy surplus in the south and energy deficient in the north. इसकी वजह ये है कि most of our oil and gas imports come out of the southern region. The Thar coal comes out of south. Sindh itself is the largest producer of oil and gas in Pakistan. So there is now going to be a need from again the supply chain and logistics side to pipe or somehow transport a lot of fossil fuels from the south to the north, and that becomes our primary energy corridor from either the Karachi port or the LNG terminal at Bin Qasim or the mining at Thar, whether it's generated into electricity, is going to be fed northwards into an energy deficient, including the nuclear plants which are coming up, by the way, around Karachi. So this is going to be something worth looking at from our logistics and supply chain, because the SARIC there's a supply chain involved. In coal, for example, bringing in imported coal, there's a very long supply chain. There's a coal handling terminal, then there's a rail freight, and there are implications for all very, very large quantities of needing to move from one place to another. Similarly for LNG, which is going to be regasified, piped into the main line, and then transported to power plants in the north, which are coming up in Sahiwal and all the other places that we see. Uske ilawa, the other, yes, of course, then we have the wind corridor in Sindh. So let's not forget that we have, there's going to be surplus energy in Sindh to be transporting. So that's kind of one marker that we put in on the energy side. Lastly, if I turn to the economic belt and the what we see is कि जहाँ पे हमारा border है ना with China, there's the first Chinese town after that border is a town called Kashgar. If many of you are familiar with that, right? If you go further north of Kashgar, we come to Urumqi, which is the capital of the Xinjiang region, and then you go further northwest. Now you are almost 1,000 kilometers from the Pakistan-China border, and you are sitting on. You arrive at a town called Korghos. Korghos, it's pronounced Korghos, and this is on the border of Xinjiang and Kazakhstan. And this town is exactly where the One Belt One Road, the overland route, is passing through. So it's sitting right on the trunk passageway. The CPEC is going to terminate at Kashgar, and that is 1,000 kilometers from Horgos, where the major. Now, if you go to Horgos, there's a very major free zone that the Chinese are developing there, and there is a 6-lane. Imagine there is a 6-lane rail track that connects China and Kazakhstan to travel east-west. Uske alawa, so there is going to be a lot of, it's a big logistics center that Pakistan must study, and I've been saying that for 2 years now, that a delegation needs to go out to Horgos and take a look at what is happening there, because वहाँ पे जो हो रहा है, they are manufacturing wind power equipment, they are manufacturing oil and gas equipment, they are manufacturing iron and steel, food and beverage, consumer goods, chemicals and farm products. अब ये सब वो चीज़ें हैं which are the future needs of a developing Central Asia. So Horgos, in my view, is a springboard for Pakistan to put its goods across into Central Asia. And it is also a springboard, it is also a very good nodal point from which eastwards into Western China, because remember, Western China, which is Xinjiang region, is only 20 million people,
and it's a $150 billion economy, so it's not huge. If you're thinking कि सारे China का oil यहाँ से जाएगा, then that is not going to happen. Let me tell you, because Xinjiang is itself surplus in oil, और उनकी क्या requirements हैं, वहाँ पे कोई बहुत लंबी चौड़ी manufacturing नहीं होती है. Again, remember it's 20 million people. It is maybe smaller than Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in terms of number of people, and in terms of economy, it is probably a little bigger than Punjab. And that is the region of China that is going to be using CPEC. Not Shanghai, not Beijing. I think a lot of people here are totally confused, thinking because Shanghai, Beijing tak agar container jana hai, then it will, from Karachi, the best route is through sea freight. There's no other better way. And don't let anyone fool you into believing that यहाँ से truck पे container चलेगा और Beijing जाएगा. It's not going to happen. It's only going to go as far as Urumqi and Western China and some places, which is 20 million people, and that's a modest size of an economy. But like I said, once you reach Khorgos, then you are looking westwards into Central Asia. And so that's the other market that Pakistan needs to look out for. Iske alawa, in Urumqi itself, there's a technological development zone that has been inaugurated, and there's also a very large Central Asia, China Eurasia fair, I think it's called. It's like a big mandi that's set up, and it's like a big fair, just like Dubai mein, these big expos and all. So that's another outlet, because all of the Central Asian buyers come there, and they are, that's another place to start making supply chain and logistical connections with China. Now, if you ask me more about the supply chain and logistic opportunities that CPEC may offer, one of the suggestions that I would like to table is that don't only look at end products. Look at intermediate goods and look at raw material. Look at intermediate goods and goods before the final assembly. Before the final assembly takes place. Remember, think of the automobile industry in Detroit. The final assembly was taking place in Detroit, but all the vendor, Kashif, it's disturbing, very, very disturbing, and all that flipping paper. But all that, all the sub-assembly and the manufacturing of components was being done across the border in Canada. और वहाँ से सब materials आते थे, and then the final assembly was being done in. So now this is the model that we need to explore in terms of looking at supply chain opportunities and value chain opportunities in terms of what CPEC can offer us, and how we can connect Pakistani enterprises with emerging enterprises that China is developing in those technological zones that I have just identified. So one has to be specific, and one has to talk from a very specific angle. इस तरह generalities में बात करना कि जी ये हो जाएगा, बन जाएगा, this is all I hear, and it's a lot of hot air that we hear out of Islamabad, and I think they need to explain to us कि how is it different कि एक तरफ NATO containers जा रहे हैं या China के जा रहे हैं, इन दोनों में क्या फ़र्क है? Explain that to us simply. So we need to now start talking about very, very specific initiatives. What will be made, where will it be moved from what point to what point, by whom, why, what are the costs, why should it happen? These are the kind of questions we should be asking, not flamboyant kind of speeches ke corridor ban gaya ji bas ab sari duniya yahan se guzre. It's not going to happen like that. Lastly, I'll just take 2 more minutes on the Gwadar port, and to my mind, Gwadar is viable with or without CPEC, because in Vision 2025, we had identified 3 core competencies for Gwadar. Now, one core competency, by virtue of being a deep water port, it can handle very large vessels, and therefore it is a natural ब्रेक बल्क ऑपरेशन सेंटर. अभी जो ब्रेक बल्किंग होती है सारी वो होती है दुबई, रास अल खैमा, शारजा, फुजैरा, बट पाकिस्तान हैज़, and I told them, I said, send a delegation, send a sales team from here, go to the break bulk operators in Dubai, in Jabal Ali, and offer them 30% discount to what they are getting, the rates they are getting in Dubai, and ask them to relocate to Gwadar and give them a bundle of incentives. This is how you build critical mass in business. You bring your first customer. जब तक पहला गाहक नहीं आता आपकी दुकान पे, you do not have a business. But I have yet to see any movement on that. Who's going to use Gwadar? Why are they going to come here? What are the rates? Who is your competition? Abhi wo kya use kar rahe hain? Stuff like that. Okay. The second core competency for Gwadar is a distant one. कि जब रेकोडिक और साइंदक डेवलप होगा तो उसके जितने ओर्स हैं, द आउटलेट विल हैव टू बी थ्रू द नियरेस्ट सी पोर्ट व्हिच इज गवादर. एंड द थर्ड competency, again, if you need to build critical mass, then sometimes you give a certain franchise benefit to a business entity. And in our terms, one of the things the government can consider is to shift the Afghan transit trade traffic to Gwadar. Lekin uske liye bhi we will need to have a sensible transport link from Gwadar up to Kandahar, which is the start of the Afghanistan ring road. Otherwise, if you don't have a rail line and your roads are in disrepair, so otherwise, yes, it's a very, very long-term infrastructure development program, and but it will need far more specific thinking now than we have been talking about in the past. So I'll end on that note. Thank you.